Hello and welcome to Them's Writing Words, a podcast discussing... I fucked up. Okay, my push...
I mean...
No!
we can do over.
Key
We can do over.
Send it scrolling off the screen. I'm going to switch what my push-to-talk key is, because the one I've got is not working, because the entire doc just disappeared. Hello and welcome to Them's Writing Words, a podcast discussing selected fanfictions from the... Selected? What?
Take 3.
Fuck this. I should just leave this in at this point. Hello and... Is this some kind of record of how quickly I fucked up?
I don't think that's broken the record as it stands so far, no.
Can anyone talk today?
Professional fucking podcast.
We're professionals since when?
Where are you?
Hello, and welcome to Them's Writing Words, a podcast discussing selected fanfictions from the world of Pastel Horse literature. My name is Scribbler, and I will be your moderator today. For all the good that'll do. Joining me for this discussion, we have Goombasa.
Hello.
Mami Dulugo.
I'm so proud of you for making it through it.
Neighrator Pony.
Hello, everyone.
And our fic picker Midori.
Join me as I sow the seeds of chaos.
Today we're looking at the fanfic Home is for the Weak by Pickleless, as chosen by Midori. The synopsis, which she's going to read, is...
Celestia and Scootaloo are homeless in a Ponyville alleyway together. They like to talk about things. These are the things they talk about.
Yeah, words are hard, aren't they? Even when you've got them written in front of you, words are hard, aren't they?
Hey, I stutter all the time anyways. You're the one that's been doing this for years.
I have a literal speech impediment that I've overcome, thanks.
Well, I do too.
Good! In which case you understand my pain! Shall we move on?
Sure.
The story was published between 16th of July 2015 and was still being updated-ish in 2nd of February 2019, and it clocks in at 22,956 words, not all of which we're going to look at, which we will explain in a moment. Midori, what the fuck is this story about, please, in a non-spoilery way?
In a non-spoiler way. In a non-spoilery way. That's not a word. Anyways, to give you the explanation, basically every decade, one of the royal sisters takes a 1-year vacation where they go into disguise and be whoever they want to be and do whatever they want to do for a full year before coming back and doing the princess thing, refreshed and ready to go. But while Luna, whenever she does it, she likes to pick up a hobby or something. Celestia always does one thing and one thing only, and that is sleep in a box in an alleyway for the entire year. But this year, she chose the same box that the little orphan Scootaloo lives in, so the two of them just end up living in the box together, making conversation about a lot of random stuff.
With hilarious results.
Yes, shenanigans ensue. Yeah, so that's a pretty good rendition of what this story is about. To be fair, when we get into the spoilery bit, that's not going to change very much because it is very much a bit of an off-the-wall random story. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the tags. Do we believe they're accurate? They are comedy, random, and slice of life. Midori, since you're the fic picker, you get to go first. What do you think?
Awesome. And also, before I go into that, in relation to what you said earlier about we're not going to read all the chapters, we read the first 12 chapters of the story because that is the where the main story takes place. Everything after those 12 chapters is a bunch of bonus material of just ideals of what happened before and after the story ended. So, tags. Comedy, random, slice of life. Yes, I feel that all these tags are appropriate. Comedy, because it is literally a comedy. It's just a bunch of humor. Slice of life, because it's a slice of their lives. It's just them living their life together. And random, because I feel like people misconstrue the word random as a genre as to meaning just, random nonsense that doesn't make any sense. I feel like it's used very properly here in the sense of Like every story is every chapter is just something different. It's like episodes of like what am I going for here? Like an anime that has episodes that don't have a single narrative plot line across the course of the story. You know what I'm talking about?
I got more of a Robot Chicken vibe from this. Like lots and lots of little random skits that didn't really connect.
That works.
Oh god, for fuck's sake, I didn't even... Narrator, that was not an actual pun.
Oh my god.
Can I just point out the irony that Narrator spotted the inadvertent pun, but Midori didn't? Queen of puns missed it. You have been usurped by the king of puns.
I'm something of a punster myself.
Are we now going to have a pun off in the podcast?
Not
Narrator punny.
Yeah, literal Neighrator. The clue is in the title.
I hate that. I hate that I chose that username, but there's nothing I can do about it now.
It seemed to work. Sorry, Midori.
In any case, yes, I feel that the random is truly earned here and used properly along with the other tags.
Goombasa, what do you think?
Well, first I'll just say that I kind of hate that random is a tag that exists. Comedy, well, that really depends on whether or not you find the story funny to begin with.
Did you find it funny?
There were moments. But I won't say I found it consistent. Let's go with that. And slice of life, well, considering it's two ponies just having conversations every chapter, I guess it qualifies? Yeah, I got nothing else to say. I'm on the fence about a couple of these tags, I guess.
Mami?
I mean, yeah, sure, they work. I can't really think of anything else that would work any better. The author said that they like minimalism, and that's what the story was written with in mind. So I think it would be interesting if they had introduced a minimalism tag, because you can just introduce tags on fanfiction, I think, can't you? Like, you can just write in pretty much whatever you want.
No, it's going to be the ones that are listed on the site. AO3, you can write in whatever tag you want. But fanfiction, it's a drop-down list, and you have to pick from them.
That completely recontextualizes some of the tags I've seen available on fanfiction then. So, yeah, I don't know. Of the ones I saw, these work
What do you mean? I'm curious now, what do you mean?
There's, like, different genre tags for, like, other works of fiction. Like, there's a tag for The Walking Dead. So if that had to be programmed into the website, I just find that kind of incredible.
I assume that means that there must have been enough people who've gone to the suggestion box and asked for it. My god, how many people want to do Walking Dead crossovers that became a tag?
Considering I think there were only like 1 or 2 fics in it, I don't know. Maybe those were 1 or 2 really good fics.
Or 1 or 2 people who do a lot of asking.
Yeah, a lot of Anon accounts. Those are popular in the fandom, right?
Trotting Dead seems to be one of those AUs that just kept going for quite a long time. Like, I saw a lot of Trotting Dead memes back in the day.
I did like that one.
To be honest, I like the Trotting Dead more than I like the Walking Dead these days, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah. Right, tags for this fic. Yeah, they're good.
Narrator, what do you think of the tags?
Yeah, the tags work, particularly random. Yeah, I'm fine with the tags.
Sorry, joking.
Thank you for keeping us in the loop.
Otherwise, I was just going to disappear for a minute.
We need, like, a counter for that. I think it's happened every podcast since Midori was introduced.
What, did I just go off and quietly die for a bit?
Yeah. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Well, considering in her first appearance, she said that she wanted me to die, that's, maybe she's going to get a wish one of these days.
I did not say that.
You literally said it. I've got it on, there's proof out there.
She just said.
I didn't say that. That's just what you read from what I said.
No, there is literal proof. Stop denying this. Don't try and gaslight me.
Are you sure you're not? Are you sure you're not experiencing the Mandela effect?
Fuck you.
Oh boy.
Right. As far as I'm concerned with these tags, yeah, they all fit. Random. I would probably introduce like Screwball if there was like there's so many different subgenres of comedy. I feel like there should be some variety in there because comedy is very much a your mileage may vary genre. Like you've got like witty based comedy like Blackadder or Red Dwarf, and then you've got screwball comedies like Anchorman or anything Kevin Smith came out with. I think this one is of the Kevin Smith variety. I could imagine like this reminds me of Mallrats or that kind of movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like comedy is such an all-encompassing genre, it's hard to quantify it. So I do think that this fits random, but I think Screwball would have been a bit better.
I demand a tag for Squash and Stretch cartoons.
Right. Since we've already had the summary of the story, what are our overall opinions of this story? Just on a basic like or dislike ratio. Goombasa, do you like it? Do you not like it?
It has its moments. Like, it's not really my brand of humor. Honestly, there were moments where I found myself smiling. There were moments where I did laugh out loud a little bit. Midori can testify to that. But on the whole, like I said, the story was just very hit and miss, which, considering that every chapter is sort of its own microcosm, I guess was sort of to be expected.
Mami?
Yeah, it's alright. Like the story itself, the actual content of it, I don't have any strong feelings about. It was decently digestible, pretty nicely forgettable for me. In terms of like the story itself as something in wider fandom, I think it's interesting because I don't think this is something that could work as an individual piece of fiction. I think it very much relies on the fact that you know a wider context, and that's why it works as minimalism. So that was neat, but otherwise, yeah.
When you say a wider context, do you mean a wider context of like fanfiction tropes within the pony fandom?
I mean, in the sense that this sort of thing where you don't have any introduction of the characters really, and some chapters are just a few lines of dialogue and that's it. It really heavily relies on you knowing established things about the setting, even more so than any other fic. So I don't feel like, sometimes with a work of fiction where they feel out of character, which is how I feel about this fic. I think it was really out of character for the characters chosen. You might say, well, it would have worked better if it had tried to be its own thing instead of trying to be a pony fic. But with this, I don't think it could have worked as anything else. But I also don't think it works as a pony fic. So that was neat.
Is this something we're going to get into in spoilers about why you don't think it works as a pony fic?
I don't know. Maybe. It was just kind of like, why bother for me?
Okay, we're definitely going to get into this. Midori!
Yes, I absolutely love this story. That's why I chose it. And I just love seeing, I perfectly am fine with people not enjoying it and, like just seeing their reactions to it and everything, because I just find it absolutely delightful, especially seeing how different people react to the different forms of humor. Because as Goombasa said, as Gumi said, yes, it does have different kinds of humor in almost every chapter. One chapter has dark humor. One chapter has somber humor. One chapter's humor relies entirely on the title of the chapter. And that's something that I'm okay with because, like Mami said, this story is almost essentially shitposting the fiction. And I just find that delightfully amusing. Some chapters I am not fond of, I will be honest, but I do overall just really enjoy this story. It's a nice, short, silly little read for me to do in my free time.
Narrator?
That's it.
That's just it, just random intake of breath. Like, that's it.
Just clicks his tongue and like tilts his head a little bit.
Just judgmental tongue clicking.
Well, hats off to Midori for choosing a fic that is very different than any of the works we've reviewed before. I can definitely say that safely. I think it is different than the fics we've tried to do before. It's not the sort of thing that I would have typically picked up on my own accord. I'll admit it. Yeah, it was funny. I read a few chapters to Kaylee last night as we were lying in bed together, and she got a few chuckles out of them. Yeah, it's It was enjoyable for what it was. It was definitely really interesting. Just like Mami said, the fact that it's minimalist, it really wouldn't have worked in any genre other than fan fiction. The characters are a bit out of character. That's part of the joke, I think. I like the fic for what it was.
I'm gonna say, in a twist that doesn't usually happen, I actually really liked this story.
Get the hell out of here!
Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are
It's
you?
This is amazing that I'm on a podcast and I don't hate the story that we've done. I'm not even ambivalent towards it. I actively like this one.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got her.
Yeah. You managed to do the impossible and choose a story that I'd never read before, but that I like.
This is amazing.
Except that means I've got nothing to say other than this was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was pretty damn good for what it is.
Maybe this will be our shortest discussion ever.
To be honest, yeah, because we're halfway through all the fucking points and we're only 16 minutes in.
It's
None of you
minimalism.
fuckers wrote anything for us to talk about.
I don't
Like,
know what to
literally,
say.
most of the talking points were me, and I wrote them before I'd read the fucking story.
I didn't know what to say, and I said, well, surely the other one ought to have some points to put down.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. We could actually go through. We could do like a live reading of some of the chapters if we wanted to. They're short enough.
Sure, but in which case you get to play Scootaloo.
Fair.
We have to do a full Rainbow Dash Presents and just have gender inversions of all the characters. So, narrator, you get to be little squeaky voiced Scootaloo, but you have to play her as Thrakazod.
I don't know what that is.
It's the Sweetie Belle voice in Rainbow Dash Presents, the really booming deep demon voice.
I am just a regular unicorn pony.
Yes, that's...
I haven't seen Rainbow Dash Presents. I'm sorry.
Well then.
Okay, if you ever come to visit me or I ever go to visit you, you are going to sit your butt down and you're going to watch Rainbow Dash Presents. And if necessary, I'm gonna prop open your eyes with matchsticks.
Oh, matchsticks this time, not toothpicks. Thank you.
I don't know, they'll be broken matchsticks, so they'll be a bit pointy.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Well, yes, how big do you think his fucking eyes are? I was going to use regular size matchsticks. This has gone way off topic.
quite so.
And that is the delight about this fiction for me. Like, you all read this story, and you came out of the story like, what do we even talk about? Like, some of you even just want to forget about it.
It's just occurred to me that one of the reasons I like this story might be because it's like reading the dialogue from one of these podcasts. It really, fucking hell, it really is. It's like reading us.
It's not so different from Mapleverse if you think about it in a lot of ways.
Fuck, you're right.
Midori, with the explanation that you just gave, I'm starting to think that you joined this podcast with the intention of sabotaging it.
She did successfully
Midori is
break the mold.
actually the mastermind behind the downfall of them's writing words after a whole, 9 episodes? Yeah, we had a good run.
This is episode 9.
Yep, we had a good run. Didn't quite make it to double figures, but good night, folks.
Well, we've run longer than your average Britcom, so...
To be honest, we've run longer than the average British anything. Including its men. Moving on.
Oh.
I can say that because Cygnus isn't here to defend.
I knew it was coming, but I didn't want to say anything.
What makes you think Cygnus would defend them?
Because he is a British man.
And then cuts to Cygnus in like a dress.
Just slowly shaking his head. He's gonna, for fuck's sake, these are my friends. Right, should we move on?
What were we even talking about?
I think that's the major thing about this story. Is just like, what were they talking about? It's. I got the feeling it was like, I used to have this phrase of candy floss fickage, which means like something that is short and sweet and pleasant while you're reading it, and then you immediately forget about it. And I got the feeling that was each chapter of this. I enjoyed it. Admittedly, I read this while I was trying to distract myself from the pain in my calves of being on a cross trainer at the gym. Reading this, going, ha ha ha, dialogue. Oh, I'm dying. Ha ha ha, dialogue. It didn't have a lot of staying power apart from the ending. Like the beginning and the end definitely had a lot of staying power, but I couldn't name a lot of the conversations they had and what order they had them in inside the story itself.
Do they have staying power?
Well, the fact that all the chapters that came after it were just set within the context of the story, but had just happened at random points in the year.
Well, actually, there are a few chapters that do take place after the ending of the story, and those ones are quite hilarious as well.
See, I didn't really get past like chapter 14, and chapter 12 was where the main plot ended. The last one I read was the 20-sided die.
Love that one.
We might have to declare spoilers now.
That's a good. I think we've danced around as long as we can. Yeah.
Yeah, for what it's worth, we're declaring spoilers.
Yeah, this is a story that is fun. It's a bit of an experience. It's odd. It's not quite like anything else we've ever reviewed. So if you want to go and see the story that effectively broke them's writing words, go read it. Right, Midori, you want to fill in the blanks of what the ending is for spoiler territory?
Well, at the end of the story, Celestia, as was preordained at the beginning of the story, her year is up. It's time for her to leave. But Scootaloo, as it turns out, has known that this pony in disguise, named No Pony Special, she realized that this stallion was actually Celestia in disguise and begged him not to go. But Celestia, she had to go. She had to go back to being a princess. But she just couldn't bring herself to leave Scootaloo, the little orphan, by herself. So she buys a house, gives her a home, and continues being her mother/father at the end of the story.
So
Yeah.
what do we think of this ending then? Narrator, since you made a noise just then, you get to answer first. What do you think of the ending?
Um.
You can't get away with silence this time, mister. Come on.
And scene.
It was. It was so. There was a moment of where it was actually touching, right? Because she's walking away, and and Scootaloo is begging him / her not to leave, and she says, "Please, Your Majesty," and they kind of stare at each other, and there's like, "Oh, you've always known." She's like, "Yeah," and it was very touching. It was somewhat at odds with the rest of the story, I guess. So that part was kind of sweet, and then it was back to shenanigans, and in the next chapter, like 100 words later. So, yeah, maybe it was.
Sorry, never mind.
Sorry, it may have been just. It was just a little bit jarring, is all. But it was sweet. Just maybe it felt maybe a little out of place.
We're definitely going to get onto that because one of the only fucking topics that somebody wrote in, thank you, Goombasa, was about the ending. And about whether the heartwarming bits were earned. So we're going to get onto that topic. Just general impressions of what we thought of the ending before we get onto whether or not it was earned. Goombasa.
It was cute. It was sweet. It did not fit with the rest of the story, but taken by itself, yeah, it's a nice big piece of what did you say? A nice big piece of candy floss after eating this giant amalgamation of mac and cheese and broccoli and whatnot. Bleh.
Who the fuck puts broccoli in mac and cheese?
Oh, it's delicious.
No, it's
Really?
not.
Don't put
thing?
broccoli in your mac and cheese.
I do no. Cheese on broccoli is disgusting.
I come from Britain.
What?
Mac and cheese here is just generally quite shitty. The first time I ever had good mac and cheese was when your wife, Narrator, made it for me when I came to BronyCon. I was like, oh my god, now I understand why people like this. Because up until that point, it was like, shit, all the way along.
I'm going to make my wife's mac and cheese for you at some point.
You know what? I think that was a perfect example, Gumi. Mac and cheese with broccoli in it, because some people, it's like, what? Some people it's like, oh, that's disgusting. And some people it's like, yum, yes.
Cheese on broccoli in general is terrific. So I mean,
it's amazing.
That's like a staple.
No.
We have
No.
You're not American.
Cauliflower cheese is a thing, but that's because cauliflower is protein.
Because cauliflower needs something to make it less terrible.
cauliflower and
Cauliflower's
broccoli are actually
lovely.
the same species. Did you know that?
They're the same species, but there is a higher protein content in cauliflower than there is in broccoli, and there's a higher iron content in broccoli than there is in cauliflower, which is why people on warfarin and blood thinners have to have lots of broccoli. No, not have lots of broccoli, sorry.
Did you know that almonds are part of the peach family?
That I did not know. Why are we on this topic?
It's the fish.
Because food.
It's this story. It's this fucking story.
Oh, don't act like we don't do this every podcast.
To be honest, we don't, but this is just...
This might be significantly worse than typical.
This is more than usual. We're going off topic way more than we usually do.
Is there on topic with this?
I suppose. Oh, Mami, you get to decide now because it's your turn to talk.
We're just doing overall opinions of the fic, right?
Or whether or not the
no,
end...
actually,
yeah, the ending. What we think of the ending, particularly.
It is crap.
Woo! Explain, please! Explain, please!
It's the same crap it was the rest of the fic. I mean, it's nonsense. It tried to pull a drama card that it didn't earn, but we're not on that specific talking point yet. So, yeah, I didn't like it, but I didn't like most of the fic, so that fits the theme.
Damn.
Oh, the smile that I have.
Right. I think we're going to move up whether or not the heartwarming bits were earned. We're going to talk about briefly about...
No.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the ending, and then we're going to talk about the characterization of Scootaloo and Celestia / No Pony special. So, Mami, elaborate. Why do you think the ending wasn't earned?
Well, first of all, do we really think this is a heartfelt moment, this ending? Because I think it's Celestia being a bitch. I mean, I wasn't endeared by it at all. Like, you walk away from this starving, freezing orphan that you've been hanging out with for like a year, and you're just like, yeah, I know you don't have a lot of friends, but bye, bitch. And you come back with a house and all this shit after that fake out, like, hey, I got you. Haha, I wasn't abandoning you. Here's you set up for the rest of your life. Wasn't it funny
Right.
that I made you think that you weren't going to be like that? Like, I just don't think that's funny. I mean, the joke fell flat for me. So if it was supposed to be like this big heartwarming moment, you know, her being a total cunt and then uncunting herself, I mean, no, I don't get that.
Excuse me, uncunting herself.
Uncunting now needs to be a word.
That's something we heard a lot in the Marine Corps. If you were really, really in trouble, it's, hey, you better unfuck yourself, Marine. So uncunting is not too much of a deviation for me.
Yeah, there you go. Other people get it. She uncunted herself, but did she really? Because she was a cunt the whole time, so whatever. No, it sucked.
Okay, so, Goombasa, this was your point. Was the ending earned?
No. I don't think that I feel quite as strongly about it as Mami does, but it's just such a massive tonal shift from the rest of the story. And it's not the first time that the story tries to do this. You have a chapter where Scootaloo's big wish, when No Pony asks her if she could wish for anything at all, is, I wish I could fly. And it tried to pull the drama card there, but it amounts to absolutely nothing. But I think the perfect example of just how tonally dissonant every chapter in this story is from one another is the chapter where No Pony asks Scootaloo how she would destroy Celestia. It is by far one of the longest chapters in the story, and it is horrifically detailed as Scootaloo goes over a very elaborate and in-depth plan, chronicling years of hard work on how she would kill Celestia if she had to. And it's actually kind of horrifying.
Oh, extremely.
It starts with her murdering her friends, Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom. That's
and deciding which one to kill first. I love that. Yeah. The fact that she thought about that is like, I never tried to kill Sweetie Belle first. Apple Bloom would put up a fight, and she's pretty strong. But if I kill Apple Bloom, Sweetie Belle's got magic, and that'd be really annoying.
Yeah,
like, fuck?
But I think Mami described it perfectly before the podcast when she called this story a shitpost. And quite honestly, I don't expect my shitposts to have heartwarming endings. And it just felt really out of place.
To be fair, my shitposting has lots of wholesomeness randomly strewn throughout it.
It was like porn with plot without the plot or the porn.
So just the with then.
What?
Mami? Well, you said it's porn with plot, but without the porn or the plot. So it's just the with.
It's with something.
That sounds like British sex.
See, most British sex isn't with anyone.
What the fuck is going on right now?
Summary of the
said Narrator as he read this story.
Yeah, summary of this story. What the fuck is going on right now? Shall we talk about the characterization of these characters?
I guess.
Hey, I didn't get to say if I thought the ending was earned.
Well, I'm assuming you think it was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Midori.
Hang on, she can't breathe right now. Give her a second.
Oh, so it's not me dying this podcast.
So, the ending. I feel that the ending, I feel like was a thing. I don't think that it was something that needed to be earned because it was just sort of a thing that happened. Yes, it was heartfelt, but I don't feel like you have to look at it like you didn't earn that heartfeltness. It affects people in different ways, and sure, the Celestia and Scootaloo, they spent that entire year together, and there's a lot of stories that we don't really have context for at this time. We only have the first 12 chapters of this story to go by, and with those 12 chapters, was that ending earned? And I feel like what ending there was earned, but it wasn't much of an ending per se anyways. So I'm not really sure how to really put it, but yeah, like that.
I don't know what I think about the ending. I think that it was a nice neat ending to the story that you could see coming a mile off. I don't know, because I grew up with like Blackadder and things like that. This very much felt like an episode of that, where you would have this random bit of heartwarming characterization at the very end. Like, I mean, seriously, guys, Blackadder Goes Forth was one of my formative comedy shows, and everybody fucking dies at the end of that one. In Flanders Fields. So, I don't know, the ending didn't feel out of place for me, just because it felt like it was a nice, neat bow on the story.
Me neither, I feel the same way.
But I think that's, like, your mileage may vary, and very much suspension of disbelief, because from the opening lines of this story, with Luna saying, Celestia, tell me you're not going to spend a year in a box. I was like, right, it's that kind of story. I'm not to take this too seriously. And because of that, the ending didn't bother me. That's it. We'll go on to the characterization. So, the characterization of Celestia and Scootaloo in this story. Goombasa, what do you think?
Like I said before, it's a shit post. These characters are very obviously not meant to represent the same characters that they do in the show. In fact, to a point, they're so incredibly unrecognizable that it's very difficult to call them the same characters.
See, I'd argue that they are the same characters, but they're very much flanderized versions of them.
Yes, that was the word I was going to use. They're very exaggerated.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about flanderization on this podcast before, but just for the benefit of those who, like, this might be your first episode, in which case we're so deeply sorry. Flanderization is where you take the characterization of a certain character and you amp it up to the nth degree, and you take all of their character points, their character beats, and ramp them up to their furthest possible points. It's like hyperbole for characterization. Everything is to the nth degree.
It was named after Ned Flanders on The Simpsons, who originally in the show was a well-meaning neighbor who just happened to be Christian, but now, so many years down the line, like the fact that he is a bigoted Christian is basically his defining characteristic at this point.
Yes. So in that case, sorry, lost my thread there. So in that case, yeah, I would. I've completely lost where I was going with this. Goombasa, take over.
Wait, what?
I realized I'd interrupted your point and gone off and done on my own. I was like, no, actually, what am I doing? I don't have anywhere to go with this, and I'd interrupted him. Carry on.
No, I've basically said my piece on it. Like, it's just, I have a hard time seeing these as the same characters at all. Like, the fact that Scootaloo is called Scootaloo, and the fact that she can't fly, and that is something that is brought up a few times throughout the story, is basically the only thing that reminds me that this is supposed to be based around her. And Celestia, of course, the fact that she's in disguise as No Pony, If you had shown me any random chapter without the context of the first, I probably would not think at all, except for if there was a hint in that chapter that it was Celestia, that this was meant to be the same character.
Mami, what do you think of the characterization?
They're not the same characters. I don't really have much to say about it.
Thank you.
Well, what's your opinion on the fact that they are not the same characters? Do you think that is to the story's benefit or to its detriment?
I think it wants it to be to its benefit. You know, they're trying to Flanderize them to the point where they're funny. But are they funny? No. Like that chapter where Scootaloo just goes off into this huge, long description of how she would kill Celestia. I didn't think that was funny at all. It seemed like a scene that would happen in the show itself, where a character, like, goes into a surprising amount of detail in response to a question as, like, a joke. But that kind of joke would typically only last maybe 2 sentences, and this lasted, like, 5 paragraphs. So kind of overstayed its welcome for me.
Like that clip that's doing the rounds on Twitter at the moment of Knuckles from Sonic Boom defining the idea of feminism to Amy.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it was just... I would almost have rather read the fic that Scootaloo was joking about than have still been reading this one.
Woof! Narrator, what do you think?
So they are out of character, but I think that's the point. That's the joke. Yeah. So they're the characters are sort of Flanderized, mockeries of their show selves, and that's what makes it funny. That's what makes this fic work as well as it does.
If they had been closer to their canon counterparts, do you reckon that would have benefited the story or not?
No. So yeah, I think so they are out of character, and I think the story is better for it. That's what makes it funny. That's the joke.
Because the joke is always funnier when you have to explain. Midori, what do you think?
Well, I feel like the characters are definitely out of character. I don't really know what to add to this. Like you said, they've been Flanderized to the point that some people don't feel like they're in character at all, and other feel like, well, that's the joke. But it's just a matter of perspective. I personally find it very entertaining seeing these characters act and speak in this manner, because, like, yeah, it's a Flanderization, but it still takes some inspiration from, like, their original personalities for that Flanderization, and I just find it entertaining.
For my part, yep, still like the story. Don't think it's any great work of pony literature, but I enjoyed it, and I think the Flanderization works very much in its favor. I said all of my points during Goombasa's point. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So, impressions of the prose style is our next point. By the way, I'm a little concerned that we're only 40 minutes in and we're already most of the way through all of our talking points. And
Don't
most of the
question
podcast,
it.
Don't jinx it.
well, most of the podcast hasn't even been on the talking points. It's been about food and shit.
That's for the better.
Oh my god, you sounded like a pterodactyl.
The P is silent.
Not if you leave the bathroom door open, it's not. Right. Impressions of the prose style. How does the story read? Is it trying to achieve any particular tone, and how well does it achieve this? Does anybody particularly want to start? Goombasa.
The prose style, I think, is one thing that does consistently work, because, as the author has said, they were going for a minimalist style, and I think it works really well in this instance because none of the jokes really overstay their welcome. A lot of the dialogue, a majority of the story is actually dialogue. It's conversations between two characters, and they don't last very long. They don't overly explain what they're talking about. They keep their sentences short and to the point, something that everybody here is pretty much incapable of doing most of the time.
But you love us anyway.
Yep.
Well,
but and I will say that does work to the story's benefit, especially as a comedy. One thing that really bothers me in fic writing is, especially in comedies, you have writers who try to copy the quick physical comedy of the show, but that doesn't really work in writing. And I'm happy to see that this fic goes for an entirely different style of comedy by relying more on character, dialogue, and personality.
Mami?
As far as prose, I mean, that's probably one of its only positives for me, is that I did like the minimalist style the author went for, and if I look at it as just someone trying to sell me a comedy skit, sure, some moments were funny. So it did achieve its comedic tone the way it wanted to, in some regards. When it came to trying to be more serious, or to be taken more seriously for just a second, I thought that fell flat, just because it was so out of left and not well written. I don't know how to say that without being insulting, but like the ending didn't work for me. The part especially where Scootaloo was like, I want to fly, it's like, oh boy, because I haven't read that 5,100,000 times in a fic before, where Scootaloo's major character point is that she wants to fly. You know, like you ask a little kid, what do you want more than anything in the world, and their answer is the most dramatic thing you can think of. It just didn't fit the story for me. So overall, it was alright, but nothing special.
Narrator?
The writing style was minimalist. Certainly, I'm trying to think of an author that kind of would share that kind of.
Janet Ivanovich. Oh yeah, actually, Douglas Adams.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. The writing style was good for what it was. Wouldn't work well in a whole lot of other contexts. I think that was all I had to say. I'm always struggling to find stuff to say. So
we are really going to struggle to even break an hour in this thing, and then I'm going to edit it down to be less than an hour, and everybody's going to wonder what the hell went wrong.
The writing style was minimalist. It was kind of Douglas Adams. I liked it. Yeah.
Midori, this is your fiction, so you can talk last.
Yeah, pretty much. Go on.
I don't feel like this story was trying to achieve any particular tone at all. Every chapter is almost a different breed of comedy from each other. But like you said, it's just a series of skits, so that's perfectly fine. Like, it has a lot of different kinds of humor, and if somebody doesn't like that kind of humor, well, don't worry, it's not going to be around for long. It's quite entertaining and varied in and of itself, and I just find that quite delightful, because I have a short attention span, I'm going to admit. So when it comes to something like this, where it's short and just all kinds of random little skits like that, that's my bread and butter. That's one of the easier things for me to do.
For my part, I liked it. I've said before now in podcasts that I'm an absolute sucker for good dialogue, and I do think that it's very snappy dialogue. Don't always think it was in character, but it was certainly snappy.
It was snappy.
Yeah, it tripped along at a nice little pace, and I haven't read enough Douglas Adams to say whether or not it's very much like his, but it definitely is like Janet Ivanovich. Like the dialogue and the conversations are more important than the prose that sews them together, and that's the feeling I got from this story. That sometimes the prose was almost there because it had to be, not because the author wanted it to be, which resulted in a couple of chapters where they did the age-old thing of having coloured dialogue and no prose to indicate who was talking.
That was a blast from the past to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll admit I've done that. I used to have asides of that in Playing With My Heart. I thought it was really clever at the time, and then everybody fucking did it. So, but that was 2013, and I haven't really seen it since then. So this was, it was a blast from the past. Point number 6. Random comedy. Is this a good example of how to write a comedic short story? And what are some of the essential elements of a good comedic short? Now, I literally copy-pasted this. It was Thornquill's point from our last review of the Moondella Effect, whereby we had quite a big discussion of whether or not Moondella Effect counted as a good comedy. Do we think this counts as a good comedic short story? Mami, I'm going to start with you this time.
Oh, fuck. Why? Why are you always picking on me?
Because you tend to make reasoned and well thought out points, and because last time it was your story that was up for the docket, so.
And now I'm gonna break the mold, because I don't know what funny is. Have you heard me talk? I have no idea how to write a comedy.
Yes, we've heard you talk. That's why we keep inviting you back on the podcast.
Fuck all of you.
It's your own damn
Oh,
fault.
wow, it wasn't me who said it this week!
Hey! What's that? 44 minutes in? That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure we'll listen back through and find a fuck off in there from her somewhere.
We'll get it out of the way now. Fuck off. Oh, okay.
There we go. Good example of how to write a comedic short story. Obviously, I don't think this story is funny as a ponyfic, as just something I read that exists in the nebulous nethers of space. Sure, some parts of it made me laugh, but if you're trying to talk about writing a comedic short story that is also a good fic for MLP, I don't think this is a good example of it, just because the characters are so flanderized and so not themselves that it's kind of like, why did you bother writing these quote characters? You know, like, barring the background bits and who they each liked, like the fact that Scootaloo likes Rainbow Dash, I feel like you could have substituted anyone in here, and I thought the author was trying to make a joke on that when they started out a chapter with it being Sunset and Diamond Tiara, and then it just went even more off the rails than anything else did, and that chapter was all right. It was very Twilight Wants a Salad or whatever, but I feel like Twilight Wants a Salad or that fic, whatever the title is, I don't know it offhand. The one where
Sparkle gets a free salad.
Yes, Twilight Sparkle Gets a Free Salad, I think, is an example of good comedy that also functions as a ponyfic, because I feel like Twilight was pretty in character in that fanfic, even if she was kind of dialed up to the nth. Whereas these, it's like Scootaloo and Celestia were dialed so far back from who they usually are and in another direction, so that they may as well have not been themselves. And that also had like a core narrative that led through the entire string of events, as opposed to being just a setup for these random little moments. But that's a different brand of comedy too, you know? So I think different elements will work depending on the kind of comedy you're trying to have. And as far as random comedy goes, there's not really any rules.
Goombasa?
I don't know if I can really add much to what Mami just said. I enjoy the way the fic is written. It's very hit and miss for me in terms of its comedy, but I do think that it is written well. It is trying to be a short form comedy, and I do think for the most part it succeeds at what it's trying. Whether or not you find it funny is going to be very subjective, though.
Yeah, I feel the need that we have to point out that one of the chapters does have a rather prolonged joke about beating up newborn babies. So it's, yeah, your mind
I thought that was
vary.
funny.
Yeah, there we go. The one bit of the story you did find funny.
Being around children, that was hilarious.
I make no comment.
Does that mean that I can beat up an infinite number of newborn babies? Scootaloo, you can beat up all the newborn infants if you so choose.
Okay, now I'm disappointed that the chapter didn't have the pun infintant.
I'm just... Oh, wow, listen to all those doors creak.
Well, guys, it was great being here, but...
Thank God. Mission accomplished. Let's go.
Narrator, do you think this is a good comedic short story?
Is it a good example of how to write a comedic short story?
Yeah.
Probably at some
That's
point.
the question.
So,
Every time Narrator pauses and goes, I picture he's just like leaning off to the side to take a hit from his blunt.
It's exactly the way to get through this.
Fuck, I don't know.
He needs it.
It's the only way I'm getting through this.
Fuck my mic.
Okay, so it's...
No,
Are
we
you
will
okay?
not.
Sorry, I knocked the mic off the table.
Whoops.
Seems to be okay. And that was not a directive, Midori.
because I wasn't having enough trouble focusing my thoughts already. Thank you for that.
The mental images just keep coming, don't they?
Is this a good example of how to write a comedic short story? It depends a lot on, you could point to the fact that the majority of us a few of us seem to enjoy it on some level or another. Yeah, exactly. So in that regard, I suppose it succeeded. Hard to say, because there was a pretty good variety in writing styles in this fic, and maybe that's part of its charm. I don't know. Sure, it's a pretty good example of how to write a comedic short story if it works for you, I guess. That was the worst answer ever. I could be a politician. Go on anyway.
Oh, gosh. I think this is a pretty good comedic short story. Again, your mileage may vary. If you can tolerate aforementioned baby jokes, you'll probably like this story.
That was probably not the worst chapter either. So I read the whole fic. I didn't stop it at 12. But there was one example where Scootaloo saw there was the one chapter where Scootaloo saw the boy she liked, the colt she liked, just outside of her cardboard box there, and she thinks to herself,
that's after the main story.
I'm going to discuss it anyway.
Hey, this is spoiler territory. Go on.
And No Pony proceeds to give her instructions on how she would, if she wanted to force herself on this young colt, then how she should go about it. It involves drugging him. So, kind of depends on whether that's your kind of comedy or not.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't get that far.
I'm glad I stopped before that one.
To be fair, throughout that chapter, Scootaloo's like, should I be getting the police? I feel like I need the police. I'm going to go get the police.
And like I said before, your mileage may vary on whether or not you find the fic enjoyable, but your mileage is definitely going to vary from chapter to chapter, whether or not you enjoy it.
Yeah, and since I was skipped over again, I
wasn't skipped over. I just hadn't got to you yet. Bloody hell!
You started talking about your point.
No, I didn't. You may have noticed. I just randomly interrupt because I am a terrible moderator.
I think
Thanks,
that was
Mom.
my point. So this is as good a time as any if you want to weigh in.
Man, go on, Midori. Wayward daughter of mine, apparently. My God, the PTA meetings for you lot. Fuck's sake. I can just imagine going to a school and having to listen to what all your teachers have to tell me if I'm your mum.
God.
Well, the creative writing was a little bit odd, because they kind of wrote about murdering the whole class. And they did it with some witty dialogue, but yeah, the elaborate bit about where they talked about how to hollow out my skull because I gave them homework, a little bit disturbing. Well, this particular episode of the podcast is going to some weird places.
Yeah.
Teenagers are fucked up.
To be honest, we're all fucked up. Can you imagine what we were like as teenagers? Nah, yeah.
You don't want to know.
One time, my teacher asked me to write a story about breakfast, so I wrote a story about a dragon battling a knight over a holy grail with cereal inside of it.
I'd take that over this fic.
See, I just hid in the library. I just read in the library and pray that nobody would ever ask me to speak in class, and then failed all my maths tests. That was my school experience. Just, oh, fucking hell, I failed again.
Right.
Okay.
Where the hell were we?
I was asking Midori for her thoughts on this comedic short story.
Right.
So, comedy, that kind of thing. Yes, I feel like every single person here, while a couple of us did not enjoy the story overall, it did have elements that they enjoyed here and there. The comedy is, as they said, hit and miss. And I feel like if the comedy can hit at all, then it's a good thing. Like it every chapter is a different kind of comedy in and of itself, in a sense. And I found it, for the most part, quite entertaining. Like, sure, there were a couple of chapters that missed with me, but overall, I do feel like it was a good example of comedy. And random comedy, well, like I said, every chapter is almost something different, so definitely earns the random title. I definitely feel like it is a good example of both of these elements.
As ever, I've pretty much given my opinion already. Found it funny. Your mileage may vary. A final fucking point, apparently.
How far in are we?
58 minutes.
Yay! We're gonna make it to the hour mark.
Well, I don't know, because when I've edited this down, people may be looking at this on YouTube and going, no, it's not.
You don't edit.
I do edit. I edit out the silences and the exceptionally rude stuff, which should tell people, considering the shit that gets left in this podcast, just how bad the stuff I've cut out must have been. Many things were inserted where they shouldn't have had to go in the stuff that was cut out. Is this an example of good dialogue in this story? Midori, you get to get this one first, since you apparently are bitching about being left last all the time.
Ooh.
Go on then, Midori. Lead us. Lead us with this conversation. Is this an example of good dialogue?
Fight, 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 fight.
No, not fight. She kicked my ass.
Yeah, I'm a sphinx.
I'm just really bad at fighting. I've been in one fight in my whole life, and it was against my sister, and she knocked me out. She hit me between the eyes with a badminton racket, and I was out cold on the floor.
Mood.
I have a scar still. I mean, to be fair, I kind of accidentally got my own back later when I pushed her when we were fighting over which bed we were going to have in a hotel room, and she rocketed her head off the sink, and now has a dent in her forehead because it was a ceramic sink. That, however, yeah, there's the only fight I've ever been in my life. So, Midori, doesn't matter how bad you are at fighting, you kicked my ass. Carry on.
So, is this an example of good dialogue? Yes, considering that the entire story is essentially just dialogue between these two people. I don't know if there's a name for that kind of like comedy or like that kind of skit where like two people are sitting on a couch just talking to each other, that kind of thing. Only in this case, they're sitting in a box and they just talk about stuff. They literally initiate random conversations about stuff with each other and just go with the flow with each other. Like when all of a sudden No Pony's just like, quick, what flavor are your friends? And Scootaloo is just like, oh, they taste like this. But it's so entertaining, like hearing about this random stuff that they talk about and just where their conversations go. It is the entirety of the comedy of this story. So I do think that this is a great example of good dialogue. It's very witty and humorous.
Goombasa?
Again, I kind of fall back on the answer that I gave about the comedy. Is the dialogue is very, very hit and miss. Like Scribbler, you compared it to Mallrats earlier, and I also think like a good comparison is something like Clerks, where it's just a lot of two people talking to each other about inane things, all things considered. I don't really have an opinion on it beyond that.
Narrator?
Yeah, the dialogue is good in that I enjoyed it. It was funny, and I don't have a lot to add.
That seems to be a theme of this entire podcast. Yeah, it was all right. It's all right. No more opinion than that, really. Mami, you've just chimed in there in the background. Go on.
Yeah, I don't know. We can't really sum up the whole podcast, but it was all right. Because, I mean, the story overall was okay, but the dialogue especially, no. It sucked.
Okay, go on. Why?
Like I said before, it doesn't work for the characters it's trying to be, and it doesn't have to because it's a comedy, and it's specifically a random comedy. So yeah, there's some leeway in being as out of character as you want, but can you call it good dialogue just because sometimes trying to be funny, it is funny? No. I thought it was interesting to read a fic where two people just sit down and talk the entire time, especially because we don't get that a lot in the show now. I just wish it was done when the characters were being taken kind of seriously. And then we get to the parts where, like, Scootaloo gets her period, and I kind of just nope back out. So,
I must admit, I noped the hell away from the story at that point.
Yeah, no, thank you. So if there are parts of the dialogue where I look at the entire chapter and I go, no, please, let's not do that.
To be fair, that chapter I thought was one of my favorites. Just after that first paragraph there, it took a sharp turn upward. It got better after that. That was the very next one after the story officially ended.
Yeah.
The roller coaster and the garbage dump.
Yeah.
Last thing I want in my pony fic is a baby talk.
So don't mind the baby talk. It was the random menstrual cycle bit. It's like, oh god, no.
I don't want to think about children bleeding.
In a cardboard box in the middle of a street, yeah.
Oh god, the infections.
I shouldn't laugh at that. Shit.
Hope you don't sit on some sugar. Yeah.
Okay, So for our listeners, this is a chapter where where No Pony is giving Scootaloo the birds and the bees talk. It sounds like the rest of you didn't read that chapter, or at least past that part. It was all right. Well, what did you think about the part after that? Admittedly, the part with the first paragraph there was sad and worrisome. But was the rest of that chapter okay?
Try hard and boring.
I didn't like it, but that was personal preference. That I don't know. I couldn't appreciate any comedic bit of that. I don't know. Yeah. Just describing female genitalia as a garbage dump. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't even make that connection, but yeah, not my favorite analogy.
The garbage dump was the butt. God,
I know.
Like the whole
that
joke.
didn't make it any better.
From
No Pony's analogy.
I don't really want to put it this way. I don't really want to think about Scootaloo bleeding into a cardboard box, but then I especially don't want to be thinking about an underage pony's butthole.
Yeah, can we not?
I had more to say to defend that, but I don't think I can at this point. So
no, go ahead.
You try and defend it. Go on. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Come on.
Wow, damn, Scribbler, that was pretty good.
I thought it was okay. If that chapter if they left out the first part where it's the fear and the mess and the worrying about infection as Scootaloo is having her first period in this cardboard box in the middle of the street, if they had just left that part out and just gone straight to the birds and the bees talk, I think the chapter would have been. I agree that the chapter would have been better for, but that was kind of funny to me.
I don't know. I think I almost would have liked a chapter where they did seriously talk about that issue. It's just not the way it was done there, where it was very graphic and sudden. Like, it was such a tonal shift from the chapter before it, too, where things were kind of resolving, and then suddenly, you shouldn't go into a funny chapter being grossed out, but that's just me, unless you're, telling fart jokes or some shit.
Okay, so we're agreed that if the opening paragraph had been left out, I think the chapter would not have been any worse for it, and would have almost certainly been better for it.
Maybe.
Okay.
This is a your mileage may vary stories.
We need a counter for how many times someone says that for this fic.
For how many times Scribbler says that.
I'm trying to make it clear to people that some parts of this story will appeal more than others, and they will appeal to different people. So if Narrator found it funny, that's fine.
That was so passive-aggressive.
What? No, it wasn't!
That's fine. You can find it funny. That's
if Narrator found it funny, that's fine.
Oh, fuck's sake. I try to be as barefaced and honest as possible. It is fine if he found it funny.
Love you.
Oh, do you guys not realise with me at this point that what you see is exactly what you fucking get? There is no passive-aggressive bullshit here, because I'm not clever enough.
Right.
Narrator, go on.
That was it, I think. And the chapter ends with Scootaloo saying, "So, well, couldn't I just sneak in through the dump and then go play at the playground and then sneak back out again, and then I wouldn't have to have a baby?" It's because the back door. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I guess we're done here.
Sad trombone.
To be honest, Narrator's dialogue is funnier than the chapter.
The rest of this podcast needs to be Narrator dejectedly trying to explain why the fic was funny.
Yes!
Because anal. Okay.
Just him up on a stage, sweating, tugging at his bow tie, just
coughs in the audience, the little microphone wide, and then,
big old nervous smile. So, how about that butt sex?
So you know what? There is such thing as je ne sais quoi in fiction, okay? That's a thing. I don't have to explain why. If I have to explain to you people why butt sex is funny, then maybe we should be friends, okay? It's funny.
Nay, we're not judging your preferences here or anything.
I'm your best friend.
Oh, no. Oh, you're gonna make me throw up again. Stop it.
I take it all back. The fic is fantastic, if only because it gave me Narrator telling me, if you don't think butt sex is funny, then we're not friends.
Everybody's choking and dying. Everybody's choking and dying. My master plan.
I'm
dying of
hurt.
embarrassment. Everyone else is dying of laughter.
This is fine. Yeah,
That's
great
it, we
big
can-
choice, Midori. Thank you.
Imagine it, the little dog sitting on his chair going, "This is fine," as the flames of "Butt sex is funny" burn around behind you.
Please.
Narrator's life
Please don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe.
for butt sex.
Oh.
We'll send Narrator to your house.
We'll send Narrator to your house to scream at your ass.
I think we can just
Apparently
pack up
we
and
all
call it a day.
Just yell at the plot around here.
God. On that note.
Oh, I can't. Oh, no.
Those are some...
Not like
This is not the time you want to make those noises.
I can't breathe. Oh, my God. I haven't laughed like that in so long. Probably since the last podcast. Had anybody not spoken yet?
I can't remember. I don't remember anything about my life before this moment.
Okay, because if nobody wants to speak, that does mean we've come to an end because nobody has any other points.
Well, from the sound of it, Narrator
Oh.
comes to an end.
Oh my God!
No! Oh, wow! Woo!
Ah!
I
And now Scribbler is dead.
That's it.
You have to
No,
wrap.
she's gotta
You
be-
have to wrap up, Scribbler. Pull it together.
She,
You have to do the outro.
she's got a few whinges left.
No!
You can't say wrap up and pull it after that.
There's no end. There's no end in sight.
This is the point where Cygnus has logged off.
No! I can't do this.
Are you going to be okay?
No! Oh my God. Okay. Final thoughts. I don't know which one of you fuckers to pick first for final thoughts. Goombasa, you giggled. You get to go first for final thoughts.
Okay. Well, it's very hit and miss. If you're going to read it, I do recommend that you do at least give it a try, because who knows? You roll the dice and you might find something that you enjoy. Really, the most enjoyment I got out of it was just Midori giving us the gift of laughter in this discussion, but that was about it for me.
Mami?
Much like anal, you don't know you like it until you try it, so it's
Oh.
still
Oh
worth
my
the read.
No, I don't need to stop laughing.
Midori, Mami, you're just hitting dingers out of the park this whole time.
I'll hit your dinger if you want me to.
Ah!
We gotta
Yeah.
get a fucking soundboard for
He's
this
mine.
podcast.
Everything we said that wasn't to do with the fic was funnier than anything said in the fic itself. But that's
Most of it just
me.
by narrator.
Most of it just by Narrator.
On that
Screw you
note,
guys.
narrator, what do you think? What's your final
Shut
thoughts?
That's what I think.
Seriously, what are your final thoughts?
I'm too mad to make final thoughts right now.
Aw.
It's a good,
Oh, you're so adorable when you're mad.
it's a good fic. It's a good fic. I recommend it, if only for the hilarious discussions you'll have with your friends afterwards.
True. Midori?
I find the fic very enjoyable. It, like everybody else said, it can be a bit hit or miss, but I recommend that you give it a try. I know that there is a good chance that you'll find something that you enjoy about it. You might not, but you might be pleasantly surprised, like Scribbler was. So I definitely recommend it because I enjoyed it.
Final
Final
voice.
Final
Vinyl's thoughts.
I can't say anything. My final thoughts are it's pretty damn good. It's very dark. Yeah, it's an acquired taste. This story.
Yeah.
I haven't even read the apparently weirder chapters.
Yes, it's an acquired taste, like sardines or anal.
I knew it.
Or sardines in your anal.
Well, they're both about as salty if you do it right.
No.
Wow!
How are we more lewd than Wooten?
We'll invite Wooten on the podcast sometime. We'll be like, my God, you people are depraved.
Just slow clapping in the background.
YouTube won't let Scribbler upload it.
Oh shit, this is probably going to get me demonetized. This.
Ooh.
Oh God. Yeah. If I disappear, blame this podcast, and 90% of that blame Mami and Neighrator.
Right.
Okay, on that note, gonna pick the next fic picker for next time. And as I think it was Narrator said in Discord chat before, that we're actually in phase 2 of Them's Writing Words, because everybody who's in the podcast has now chosen a story.
Oh, we have to call it season 2. We have to call it season 2.
I like phase 2. That phase 2 makes it sound like Marvel movies.
Second generation.
Yeah, G2. This is G2.
What? No.
Because ponies.
Season 2, because it's like a show that we do.
But do we ever go off air enough to need a season?
Oh, just go down with it. Spin the wheel.
Okay, but now I feel sad because you seem angry with me.
I'm fine. I love you.
Oh. Spinning the wheel.
Spitting on the wheel.
Tell us the lesson that we should learn.
Oh, it's me.
It's you.
Oh, it's me.
She's so
It's
excited.
rigged.
Well, it's because I've been waiting for like 6 months to have a turn. Literally, the last time I got a shot was the very first podcast. And even then, I picked 3 of them and let the rest of you pick. So I've never actually chosen one myself before.
You know you run this thing, right?
I know, but I also
You
try
have
to
no
be
one to
fair instead of like dictatorial. Which is why we end up having random.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, okay. So the story that I've chosen is one that I've not actually read myself. It's a bit of a fandom classic, and I kind of like to know what we all think of it. And it is My Roommate is a Vampire by Dennis the Menace. It's an Octoscratch.
Octoscratch.
It's an Octoscratch vampire story, so you could probably understand why I have kind of an interest in this.
Did you do that one on your channel? I can't remember.
Nope. Sorry.
I tried to look it up, and all I got is My Roommate is on to me.
No, sorry. No, I did my own Octoscratch vampire story. This one is a romantic adventure comedy. The one I wrote is very much a tragedy grimdark.
Someone's done a reading of it, though.
Do you mean
Yes,
Vampilence?
there are. Yes, Vampilence is the one I've done. But yeah, there are 2 different readings on YouTube, or you can just read it with your eyes, like OG.
Wow, this one brushes right up against our word count limit too.
It does, yes.
Oh.
Sorry about that, but like I really wanted us to have a look at this one.
Okay.
Well, it's Octoscratch, so you have me interested.
Yay! Okay, so I have absolutely no idea whether or not I'm even going to like this story. So it's going to be a voyage of discovery for all of us.
Well, you've said that there's lots of Octoscratch vampire stories out there, surprisingly, to the point that I even considered writing one of my own just for the humor of it.
Well, this is the most famous one, so that's one of the reasons I'm interested in it, is because it is so famous. So, we have been Them's Writing Words, although to be perfectly honest, this time we've been more just Them's Words, because we haven't talked a lot about the writing.
Words. You're right.
That's the blooper reel.
Yeah. I'm dying. Right. Yeah. So thank you very much to everybody for participating, and it's time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Goombasa.
Goodbye, all. Thanks for joining us.
Say goodbye, Mami.
Later, bitches.
And you wonder why I keep giving you bitch in your dialogue.
I'm just trying to play the role at this point. Might as well.
Say goodbye, Narrator.
The butt sex is funny, okay?
Say
Funny
goodbye,
feeling.
Midori. I'm dead. I'm gone. Midori,
I did
say
it.
goodbye.
So long, and thanks for all the anal.
Oh.
Goodbye, everybody.
That's really what we're going out on, huh?
Yeah, that's what we're going out on. Oh my god, no, I can't. My sides hurt from all the
Out,
laughing.
in, and out, and in.
Stop!
Stop!
This is the closest to a clock pick you're gonna get.
Good night, everybody.
God.
Well, that was a thing.
Well, that was a thing. That is our shortest podcast and probably our lewdest. Which, considering before now we have literally described and discussed exploding Jesus bollocks. This is, yeah. Wow.